Hi, I'm Joe Sabatino. I am so excited to be a part of this incredible Sales 3.0 Conference 2022. And the dynamic speakers that you're going to hear today are truly amazing and they will be enlightening. So sit back, relax, and get ready to absorb a lot of critical and innovative information. So the first speaker we're going to have, I guess words can't even express the knowledge that this gentleman is going to bring to this audience here today. So without further ado, let me introduce Mr. Gerhard Schwartner.
Well, Joe, thank you so much for that warm welcome. It's always a treat to be on stage with you. And I'm so excited too, because we have over 500 people watching this from 55 different countries worldwide. And we have recorded this in Philadelphia. So we are going to break in a couple of minutes to the live event. So you see the dynamite atmosphere we have created in Philadelphia. And I wish you all could have been there, but we are very excited that you are tuning in today, that you get the gist of the best of the Sales 3.0 conference.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's exciting is, I think our list of speakers this year just far surpasses anything we have ever done. So this is going to be one conference that truly, I think, is going to be so memorable in our audience's hearts and minds. So I'm really looking forward to the next few days.
And don't forget, we have Hollywood rock star Joe Sabatino with us. Right there.
Here. He's here. Are you kidding me?
He is awesome. He has been featured in how many films? Like 40?
No, films and television shows, probably about 116. But when you combine all of that to the number of episodes, it's more like 220 television shows and movies. So yeah, a lot of fun. And but I think more importantly, with everything that's going on in our society today with COVID, and who knows what's coming, in the future, this is so important that we're bringing this information to the sales public, so to speak. And I think the information that's going to be presented in the next few days is going to be nothing short of amazing and educational for everyone in the audience.
You're so right, Joe, because we live in an age of uncertainty and very rapid changes. We are, experiencing now the after effects of COVID, the after effects of the war between Russia and Ukraine. We're experiencing a period of inflation, worries about the financial future. So we need to be prepared, and we need to accelerate sales. And we need to lead our sales force to the sweet spot in the market. And that's why we have assembled 25 world-class speakers that will share with you how you can win in 2022 and beyond.
Well, and that's really exciting. But I think we're going to kick this off with probably one of the most dynamic speakers here. What is his name again? Oh, right, that's you, Gerhard. I forgot. Oh my gosh. So ladies and gentlemen, Gerhard is going to kick this off with a riveting presentation about sales innovation. So just sit back, relax. This is going to be something that's truly going to be impressive. So Gerhard, I'm going to throw it over to you and you can take it away.
All right, let's watch me on stage right here.
You haven't warmed up the audience, so why don't we all stand up for a second? And if you change your physiology, you change your psychology. So raise your arms above your head like this. And on the count of 3, you scream as loud as you can, victory. 1, 2, 3. Victory! I couldn't hear you, sorry. Can we do this again, but louder? 1, 2, 3. Victory! All right, have a seat, thank you. So now to bring the temperature down a little bit, I'm going to read word for word what I have written. And welcome. That's interesting. So I'm going to talk about innovation for sales acceleration. And innovation is really an interesting thing that is neglected in most sales organizations. Why? Why do you think that is? Professor Le Bon from Johns Hopkins University, can you tell us why innovation is sort of a stepchild in American business?
So I was just saying that it's hard, of course, because we are creatures of habit. But I was also saying that it's even harder in the classroom. I teach sales or digital sales transformation. So maybe this is also why I'm here. Thanks to your invitation,
Right.
Gerhard.
There are actually, let me correct the professor, there are actually 3 reasons why we get inhibited by innovation, by thoughts. We get disturbed. And the 3 things are anxiety, anxiety, and anxiety. There's a lot of fear. We all want to establish a routine. We all want to get into the box. We all want to be safe. And because we want to be safe, we don't want to take a risk, and we don't want to innovate. So I'm going to walk you through the presentation very quickly. I have 4 things on the agenda: brief background about myself, the innovation imperative. I share a 7-step innovation process with you that you can use easily today to innovate and start with that tomorrow. And I'm going to share how successful companies adapt and win. So, not to brag about me, but I come from Austria, where some of the most famous people were born, like Gerhard Schwartner and Arnold Schwarzenegger. So Gerhard is from Salzburg, Arnold is from Graz. And this is me as a little kid in my grandmother's country in first day of school. And there's the city of Salzburg and the little village. And this is my grandmother's country in today, a thriving business. And that's the city of Salzburg. How many of you have been to Austria at all? Oh, great. Wow. Awesome. And that's where Mozart was born, another famous Austrian. And you probably wouldn't know this, but the word Salz in Salzburg stands for salt. And salt in the 9th century, when this fortress was built, was worth more than gold. So it was like Silicon Valley, if you will. And that's where they mined the salt. And that's the oldest bakery in Salzburg. They started in 1429. And then I started selling Power Magazine. This is really fast forward. And I had the privilege of interviewing the most incredible people in business, industry, and in sports. And I want to dive right in. By the way, the clock doesn't work, so I don't know what time it is. Technology. So 600,000, 6.5 million, 413,000. Those are 3 numbers I want you to keep in mind. 600,000 are the new patents that are issued every year in the United States. 6.5 million is the number of new businesses starting in the United States. And 413,000 businesses fail. They fail to innovate. So innovation is the heart of value creation. Is Julie Thomas here? All right, Julie. You started a company. Can we have the microphone? You started a company based on value creation, on value selling. And I'd like you to share for a second what got you on that track.
Well, I started my sales career at a company called, at the time, Gartner Group. It's now Gartner. Any of you in the IT industry or around that probably are familiar with them. And I was introduced to the concept of value selling back then. No person in their right mind would spend $20, $30, $40, $50,000 a year for printed research. But that's what we sold, that subscription-based. We were doing recurring revenue before recurring revenue was cool at Gartner with annualized subscriptions. So quickly realized through my career in sales and sales leadership that the customer always knew exactly what our cost was, what their cost was with us, but we rarely knew the quantified business impact to them. We might know directionally, like we will save you money, or we can save you time, or we can mitigate risk or whatever, but we didn't have the skills to quantify that in a business context. And that's what kind of lit my fire and got me excited about how we could help sales professionals and sales organizations figure that out.
So what you're saying is, unless you're able to quantify value, you really don't have a good chance of selling.
Well, at the end of the day, every customer makes the decision, is it worth it?
Right.
And to do that, they're going to judge how much they're going to get versus how much they're going to pay.
Exactly. Right.
And sales reps need a skill set and the confidence and the competence that they can navigate that conversation.
Right. So what you're saying, there's a structure to the conversation, and there are certain words that sell and other words that don't sell.
There is a structure to the conversation, and it's all about what the customer thinks selling isn't telling.
Right. Thank you, Julie. Give her a big hand. And I forget, Joel didn't get a big hand. Let's give him a big hand, too. You're not a stepchild. All right. So what drives innovation, and this is important, there are three things. You know the saying that necessity is the mother of invention. So the first driver of innovation is adversity. The second driver is diversity. Because when you have a diverse team, you allow the cross-fertilization of ideas. And the third is curiosity. Curiosity is the mindset of the innovator. And I want you to adopt that curiosity mindset, because the more curious you are, the more you keep fear at bay. Adversity, diversity, curiosity. And what it inhibits, we already talked about it. So I want you to shift your mindset. I want you to shift your thinking about innovation. You want to confront the choice. Do I want to live in a box, or am I free to create? I want you to unbox yourself, to reinvent yourself. Because you are part of God's creation, and you have a responsibility to be the best that you can be. Agreed? Russ Walker? 100%. Thank you. All right. Here's the thing. When you're in the box, and Clayton Christensen from Harvard Business School said this many times, the companies that try to do everything right are the ones that are most likely to fail. And I remember an interview I did with Ross Roberts at the Ford Motor Corporation and his marketing manager. And I remember the marketing manager having his arms behind his head, sort of musing and thinking about, because Ford Motor Company was the #1 in the country, in the automotive industry. And he said, looking out the window, not looking at me, he says, Gerhard, you don't know how hard it is to be #1. And I thought he was full of himself, but I was listening. And I said, why? I'm curious. And he says, because we have nobody to chase but ourselves. And we are going to grow complacent. In the second year, the year later, they were— and then they almost went bankrupt. So As sales leaders, we need to innovate all the time, people, process, and technology. We want to innovate people by teaching them, by setting the example, by setting expectations, by teaching them how to sell value, not price. We need to innovate processes because the processes that you adopted last year because of COVID or the year before, which is virtual selling, those techniques, all of a sudden they wear out. Everything wears out. All processes become stale. So we need to innovate. Same thing with technology. We have a lot of technology out there, and I encourage you to look at the vendors. Give you an example, innovation at General Motors. A company that is over 100 years old, they've innovated for 100 years, everything except the engine. And then Tesla came along. Why don't we power this with electricity? Why don't we replace the gasoline engine with an electric engine that's more efficient? Today, General Motors is worth $54 billion. Tesla is worth over $700 billion. It's amazing what innovation can do. Kodak, another example. They innovated the digital camera, but they were married to film. They wouldn't let go of film. They didn't want to kill their own business, and they killed themselves. Same with Blockbuster. They had the chance to buy Netflix for $50 million, and they laughed them out of the room. They said, we can do this ourselves. We can create a subscription model. And they sold the subscription through 9,000 Blockbuster stores and lost money on every subscription. They had to close 9,000 businesses. And now we can say they have been blockbusted. And you don't want to be blockbusted. You want to innovate. You want to change. John Henry Patterson, the founder of NCR, is the founder of modern selling. He created a system, a process for selling that has been unequaled to that day. He had 3,000 salespeople. He invented the protected territories. He invented the customized customer testimonials by industry. And he carried a little book, a little red book. And Gitomer stole the idea from him, the little red book, you're going to hear it tomorrow, where he captured all his ideas. So you don't want to be an idea observer, you want to be an idea catcher and capture those ideas and turn them into reality. Waldo Emerson said, look sharply after your thoughts. They come unlooked for, like a new bird seen in your trees. And if you turn to your usual task, they disappear. So ideas are very fleeting. They're very sneaky. You have them one moment, and the next moment they're gone. So capture the ideas and turn your sales organization in an idea creation machine. So I have 12 minutes left. I'm going to go through this pretty fast, and you're going to get the slides. You're going to get to review everything. And by the way, I want to thank those 500 people that are watching online from 60 countries worldwide for participating. So here's the Scamper model, and I'm going to walk you through. The first one is substitute. What could I do to substitute to increase productivity? And now we turn our attention to Russ Walker for a moment, and he's Senior Vice President, can I get the microphone, with DataSite. So DataSite did SKOs. So every year they got the entire sales organization together And they had 450 people in the audience. And what made you decide to flip the model, to create a substitute and create smaller meetings instead?
Necessity. It was what we saw with the dynamics of COVID. It was what we saw with the challenges of travel, but it was also what we saw with the need for people to collaborate, get together, get that energy, and create these more small, intimate environments for people to come out with innovation and learning.
And you had, instead of one giant SKO, you had 12 regionals in 6 countries, and the average attendance was 33. What was the result? What was the best comment you've got?
We had sellers running, like you do at a sales kickoff, you kind of get like that 6 to 9 month or so energy afterwards. Sellers were just ready to go out into the market and just crush it. They came out with a lot of great ideas, the energy, the enthusiasm, the new connections, the networking, just gave us a ton of lift.
Give a big hand, thank you. You'll be speaking later today, and we're going to learn more. Thanks for doing that. What could I combine? And here's an interesting example. This is an Austrian wingsuit pilot. And he collaborated with BMW. And he was bugging them, and he says, is there a better way to fly? And they said, well, we can create you an engine. And they went to the drawing board and developed an electric engine that runs for only 5 minutes. And they tested it in a wind tunnel. And it gives, the theory was, it gives him more power, especially when they fly in tricky situations, when they get too close to a mountain. And then they tested it and jumped out of a helicopter, and it gives him a boost that lasts for 5 minutes and gives him a speed of 185 miles an hour. So think about what you can innovate in your company to give you the altitude that you need to reach your sales goals. Think about it. Another example is combining things, a parachute with single-engine airplanes. Somebody came up with the idea, now 10% of all single aircraft sales are equipped with a parachute. Another idea for combining things is SpaceX. You know, here's the traditional space shuttle, and it has 4 components. It has the shuttle, 2 booster rockets, and that ugly orange fuel tank. And it was expensive to run, and it cost NASA about $80 million per astronaut to launch into space. And then they had to retrieve them. They had to do a lot of work, and they asked themselves, what could we combine? And they came up, and as was SpaceX, Elon Musk said, why don't we reuse the rockets? And we combined the rockets with very simple 4 legs, a landing pad. And they were able to reprogram the rockets, the booster rockets, and they landed safely on the ground, and they could reuse the rockets. Here are the 4 landing legs. And now the cost went down to only $55 million. Now, you can easily go to space for that money, right? So you want to think about what can I combine in my offer to bring the cost down, to make it more affordable. And there was a lot of opposition to SpaceX. People said this is a blueprint to a mission to nowhere. And Elon Musk was upset about it, but he won. Here's Vidyard, the combined video and email. Gets better response rates. A for adapt. What can I do to adapt to create more customer value? And Virtu.com is a company in New York, and they have developed a very sophisticated tool to train surgeons on how to do laparoscopic surgery more effectively. And here's a quick video. And don't think about becoming a better doctor. Think about becoming training salespeople more efficiently. So when doctors look at all the technology, there were virtual headsets. And in the headset, they get the anatomy. They also get instructions what steps to follow. And they have haptic gloves. Those gloves are all computerized that check the movements of the surgeons and give them a rating. So they perform a virtual surgery before they actually touch a body. And it becomes more efficient to train them. And you can easily see how that applies to sales training, where you have a salesperson go through the step of the sales process and gets information. So if the customer says, your price is too high, then all of a sudden a panel pops up that says, well, the sweetness of low price is quickly forgotten when you have to deal day after day with the bitterness of low quality. How cool would that be? So that, in my opinion, is the future of sales training. And what can we modify? Salesforce.com modified the payment model. So think about how can you frame your offer in a way that you transform this sale into a subscription. And there is a subscription economy that is burgeoning. And I want you to, if you're interested, get this book, The Industrial Subscription Economy. Put to some other use, DocuSign. I've been an advisor for DocuSign for 6 years. And I remember the first meeting we had, we went around the room and asked, what are the usage scenarios? What is DocuSign used for other than real estate transactions? And we came up with about 70 use cases. And then we said, why don't we ask the customer? This is what we know. Let's learn what the customer knows. And we discovered that there were hundreds more. And as we advertised the usage scenarios, sales went up. And the company became more valuable. How can we eliminate something? And here's a sweet example. There's a researcher at a university. He offered 6 chocolate samples and then measured the satisfaction and gave another group 30 samples and say, pick one. And guess what happened? The people that picked from the box of 6, they had higher satisfaction, they enjoyed themselves more, and the people that chose 1 chocolate out of 30, they were dissatisfied. They got free chocolate, but they were dissatisfied. Why? Because they had too many choices. And they had that fantasy that maybe they picked the wrong one. So think about what can you simplify in your sales organization by eliminating things, by making it less complex to buy from you, because simplicity is compelling. Simplicity sells. One more thing, we talk about rearranging, and Tesla eliminated virtually the dealerships, the haggling with the salesperson. So what can you do to streamline your sales process? So I'm getting into the last 2 minutes, and I'm going to skip the future is the digital sales room. There's one quick video I want to show you, which is diversity.
Forrester, literally just a year ago, stood up a diversity and inclusion council, and I'm honored to be one of the executive team sponsors there, because it is such important work, both for our employees as well as our client base. And I think one of the things that we've seen is, historically, and I don't think Forrester is unique, but because of the type of sale that we did, we relied very heavily on referrals to bring new people in the door. And what you realize is the downside of relying on referrals is that your population of sellers over time can become quite homogenous. So we have been working with our talent acquisition partners to talk about what can we do to make sure that we're getting a more diverse candidate pool in the door. And then one of the things that we've been training our leaders on has been behavioral-based interviewing to really help try to take bias out of the interview process and really focus on, within the sales organization, we've identified a couple of key traits that individuals tend to have who are successful at Forrester, and really making sure that the interview teams are honing in on those key traits when they're conducting interviews to help over the fullness of time us to both attract and then ultimately retain a more diverse workforce.
So I want you to remember the three drivers: adversity, diversity, and curiosity. Those are the three things that eliminate anxiety. So to bring it all home, bring it all together, here's the Scamper methodology. If you need to innovate, if you want to avoid to get blockbusted, follow the Scamper method. It helps you accelerate innovation. It helps you improve co-creation of your sales organization. And remember, innovation is at the heart of value creation. Thank you very much.